Hello and welcome to another Wizard Wenzel YGO video. I just got back from YCS Niagara today. Made it to day 2. Unfortunately, did not clear top cut. I lost in round 10 of Swiss, bringing my record down to X3. But still had a great time at the event. Was able to use the same deck list I'm about to show off to you guys to win a Winamat in one go. So I think the list was very solid. I'm going to explain sort of what changes I would have made for the event with the information that I have now. But without further ado, we're going to get into my 41 card Tenpai Dragon deck list that I played for YCS Niagara. 3 Chandra, 3 Pydra, 1 Fadra, 2 Genroku, 1 Doradora. So we're just going to talk about the important stuff that deviates from a standard Tenpai list. So some people are on 2 Fadra, some people don't play Doradora. The reason I've only played 1 Fadra is because out of all the 10 cards here, your normal summons in quotation mark, Fadra's the only one that doesn't start your combo on its own. So that's why I only played 1. I know in a resource game, having 2 Fadra can be really good, especially when Dimension Shifter's in play, the card that you love using in Tenpai. But I felt the trade-off was worth it to play Doradora instead because it is another normal summon that gets your plays going. You either can add Genroku, do Genroku stuff, or just skip straight to Chandra. Even if it gets Veilered, Ashed, or Impermed, if you have the Chandra in hand, it helps represent 2 dragons on the board instead of 1. Which can be the difference between the OTK and not, depending on what your opponent has on board. Moving on to the rest of the engine, we have 3 Kaiman, 1 Summoning, 1 Terraforming, 1 Pot of Prosperity. All pretty standard. Moving on to the non-engine, so it was 16 engine cards, 25 non-engine, which sounds pretty Tenpai to me. We had 1 Magnemite, of course, because it bridges into engine. We had 3 Dimension Shifter, still a really good card against most meta picks. I think the only thing that this won't hit are some rogue strategies that you might face, and some rogue strategies did top the YCS, so fair game as well. I mean, Pack played Bestial Centurion specifically to beat this card as well as the Molcharmies, so keep that in mind that it's not an auto win button, it's just a very good hand trap. Speaking of other auto win buttons, we have the Molcharmie Fulos and the Molcharmie Perulia. I thought both of them performed fantastic today. To me, it didn't really matter which one I saw. As long as I saw one of them, I knew I was either drawing cards or they were passing on nothing, which was fantastic. Again, in rare cases, but against your Yubels, your Snake Eyes, and both of these cards are pretty good. So playing 6 was why wouldn't I play 6 Maxi? And it really helped me get the required cards so I could really break my opponent's board and go for the OTK. Understanding the price for these. So maybe at a regional level, you don't have to play these. You can find other hand traps to replace them or just play more board breakers. But I would say for the YCS level, it was very nice for me to have the Full Losses. Continuing the non-engine, we have 3 Ash Blossom and 3 Imperm. My thought process is for my hand traps, especially with the Molcharmies and the Shifter and everything else, you don't play into talents. The last thing you want to do is you see 4 non-engine, 1 Chandra in hand, and then they talent shuffle back the Chandra. So Ash Blossom I felt was the highest impact hand trap that you could play that is worth playing into talents for, depending on how you use it and what you use it on. Using on Nightmare Throne, pretty worth it. Using it for original simple spoils, things like that. Imperm is Imperm. It's crazy. It has so many good targets right now, and as well, it dodges a lot of the negates that Yubel puts up. It dodges the Phantom of Yubel. Very good. And as well, you need answers to Wayfight King Caesar. Lastly, we played 3 Dominus Impulse. If I were to pick one card this weekend that I think was the craziest card, the best card in the room, Dominus Impulse. Even if you weren't on Tenpai, you could really tell that people were tailoring their lists to this card. You'd see Snake Eye lists that forego Fiendsmith so they can play Dominus Impulse because it is that good. Dominus Purge, I think had the unfortunate coincidence, or just I guess how it's designed, that it locked you out of the 3 best attributes of the game. But Dominus Impulse locks you out of the 3 worst attributes, the light, the wind, the earth, barring Heretic Seal, Heavenly Spheres, but you guys know that. The effect's also just way better than Purge. Because this card exists, it lets you more free, against Yubel, for example, you could Imperm the Dark Beckoning Beast and then hold the Dominus Impulse for Fiendsmith sequence, versus before we just had to pray open 2 Imperms. Or play cards that played you in triple tax talent. As well, the activation condition compared to Imperm is insane. This lets you lose less in the mirror because it can stop that Kaiman push in the battle phase. It can stop pretty much anything except normal Genroku effect tribute for cost, because then they won't control a card at that time. Lastly, for the board breakers, I just played 6 in the main, so it's triple Raigeki, 2 Lightning Storm, 1 Feather Duster. Thought process for these is, like, these 3, especially with the spell Trap, like, it contests a lot of the Yubel board. Like, they're going to want to protect their Nightmare Pain, they're going to protect their Desiree equip, whatever it may be. But as well in, like, the simplified game states where you've Mulch Armied them or you've shifted them, like, just being able to clear, like, the last couple cards they leave on board with any of these is just fantastic. So I think 6 was the right ratio for me. I've seen some lists that played slightly more. I played slightly more pre-Rage of the Abyss. Moving on to the extra deck. 2 Bident, 2 Transcendent, 1 Trident. The 2 Transcendent was because I saw the list that Team SamX1 played for Cancun and won the event, where him and Pac both played the Cashier Unicorn, and I just expected there to be enough like lists that like sort of copy that Kashtira theory. Unfortunately, like I had like the weirdest rogue matchups for my whole event, so like it never really came up. But I didn't miss what I would have been playing alternatively, which was an Odd Eyes Meteor Burst. I felt Meteor Burst was pretty weak, especially now that Dominance Impulse exists. There was definitely games where my Tenpai opponent would summon Meteor Burst, and then I just held Dominance Impulse, and like he didn't get to kill. So I just think like there's very few situations where Meteor Burst would come up compared to when like Biden could just revive a 3 and go into Transcendent. Other synchros we played the Black Rose package. I think I summoned this once, and it was against like Mimighoul. I summoned this a lot in testing, like, but not so much in tournament. And then Ruddy Rose, it came up once. It was like I was doing a game push against Salamangreat, I think, and it was like it didn't matter which Synchro 10 I summoned, but I'm just like, in case they have a way to stop me, this at least kills all their follow-up in the graveyard. But overall, I think they were all good. I wouldn't trade them. Like, I know some people were off Moonlight, but I think you get Dragon Locked between Genroku and Biden enough time that you need an option to like deal with like if they have a Spirited Yubel in hand that you need to bounce back. Lastly, we have the Samurai Destroyer, which is for Yubel. I played Yubel a grand total of 1 time, and it was fantastic for that, so you can't knock it. Can't wait for the OTS Super to come out very soon. Last card was Quibalt, the Blade Dragon. You play this for 2 reasons. It's like pretty decent spot removal during the battle phase, like especially your opponent's battle phase. And of course the Shifter OTK that like you can facilitate just off Chandra. Lastly, we played Hermetic Seal. Of course, SP. I played SP. The main thought process was like Dominus Impulse locks you out of Hermetic Seal. So if you Dominus Impulse them in turn 1 and then you're unable to kill when it's your turn 2, like, as long as you didn't Dragon Lock yourself, like, this is an okay card to end on. And then, same with that, we had, like, Hida, Doolittle, Princess. So Hida and Princess, pretty self-explanatory. Doolittle, I'm still on because I needed something to, like, I go, like, Hida climb into Princess, Princess provides something, but then, like, to link off the Princess so that it's an interrupt in my graveyard. Especially if I am, locked by Dominus Impulse from using the Hermetic Seal. So that's the extra deck. Side deck is where there's a few changes I would have made. I thought the event was still going to be pretty Yubel-centric. I didn't think as many people would have picked up on Azumina Snake Eye as they did. But for the tournament run itself, it didn't really matter because I only played 1 Yubel, 1 Azumina Snake Eye. So this is just like for future, what I would do for a similar event, which I guess we have the Remote Duel YCS coming up in a month. And unless like a surprise ban list comes out, it's going to be the exact same format because there's no new cards releasing. So we played the Quackermero Drago as a Seals target, which if you've ever played against Yubel, like this card's fantastic. I know they have some outs to it now because Lacrima is another normal summon that they have that can beat over it when summoned off Seals, but I think it's still like fantastic. And like if you use it correctly, you can just lock them out of playing the game. Or at minimum, being forced to attack you during battle phase, then you can trigger like Tundra Effect and everything else. I played 2 Droll. I thought of the hand traps that I wanted to side in, like Droll was the highest impact, because all the other ones, like Valor didn't feel high impact enough, Moonlit Chill didn't feel high impact enough, and Nibiru, although it might have been, it clashed too hard with Dominus Impulse. My thought process was you can Droll early in the turn and then Dominus Impulse later. For Nib, like it felt you're holding it for so long, you're holding it for 5 summons that you probably Dominus Impulse them already, and then you're not able to Nib. And knowing that the interaction, like if you go like they use an effective summon, you chain Dominus Impulse, you can't even use Nibiru in that same chain. As soon as the card has been activated, the lock starts applying, and the only way the lock doesn't apply is if after you activate it, the activation gets negated by like a Solemn Judgment. Then on resolution, you're still able to use light effects, but I felt it was too risky to play Nibiru because of that. Then, that's it for the monsters inside. We played 3 Heatwave. I've been a Heatwave hater since this deck came out. I picked them up, but This is like the first time I've used them. I thought they were pretty good. It came up in my Yubel match. I thought it was a great card for that. It was a toss-up between this and Crossout Designator. I've been a big advocate for Crossout Designator in the mirror, but I wanted to sort of have something that hits the mirror, but also hits like every other deck if you choose to go first. Like, there are certain decks you want to choose to go first against, especially Yubel. And even in the mirror, if you're going second, you can like counter-side it. I know it sounds kind of silly, but I know they're doing it in the OCG, and it didn't come up for me, but I could see the application where if they heatwave you, you heatwave them back, and then like it's when you get to turn 4, your turn again, you get to just OTK them. Then 3 droplet. This was to sort of have a tool that works in the mirror, a tool to dismantle boards like Asmina Snake Eye or Yubel, as well as like if it's kind of like a weird rogue matchup and like the Molcharmies don't work and like going first makes more sense, or they're gonna force me to go first. Like Forbidden Droplet's like an okay card to side. Next, we get to the 2-ofs. 2 Power Filter. Again, thought Yubel was gonna be more prevalent. Card's like okay versus Snake Eye, but with the Asmina stuff, it's like not as useful. 2 Cosmic Cyclone, just additional spell trap removal, as well as like sort of that cards if you're going first you can side in versus like the mirror or Yubel, or even like Snake Eye now with Deception, where you can just chain it, have them like lose a major resource, and hopefully live to OTK the next turn. Then the last are 2 copies of Solemn Judgment. This came up, I played against Runic Stun. It was fantastic against that with that slow-paced game. If you have to go first, it's a nice card because sometimes like Judgmenting the normal summon against like Ritual Beast or the Mirror can just end the turn. So I think Solemn Judgment was definitely worth playing. So that's it for the deck. I think the main card I wish I played but didn't, and I think a lot of other Tenpai lists you're gonna see, is Grand Tusk Dragon. And the reason to play Grand Tusk Dragon is because you need to make that Hermetic Seal as impactful as possible if it's gonna be your only interaction when you go first. Like, unless you draw, like, cards a set, like, that's fine. But Grand Tusk lets you do that pop 2 with the Seals bounce. Because, like, yeah, against Light and Dark decks, Quackrimo Drago is pretty cool. But at the same time, you need answers for, Snake Eye Asmina, the best deck of the format. So that's all I have for the video. Before we close it out, I do want to give some shout-outs. So I want to shout out Sam Knight for lending me 2 of the Dominus Impulses for the event. Like I said before, favorite card of the event. I bought my other 2, like, while I was at the event, like online, because all the vendors ran out. So, like, beating the hype price a bit. I like to shout out Kingston Card Den as well. Mike was super helpful in, like, letting people drop off cards for me for the event. And then just being able to pick them up from him, which is, like, fantastic customer service. If you're ever in the Kingston, Ontario area, check out Kingston Card Den. You won't regret it. Lastly, I want to shout out Arctic Rift Cards in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Winnipeg's my old stomping grounds. You probably saw like some of my very first videos were like remote regionals from Winnipeg. So I know a lot of the guys there. Raz and Austin at Arctic Rift Cards. Same sort of thing. I bought a full loss off someone in Winnipeg. They were coming to the event. They picked up the card and brought it to me in Niagara. So definitely a fantastic store. Check them out if you are in the Winnipeg area. So that's all I have. If you want to see more like competitive content for Yu-Gi-Oh, be sure to like, comment what you want to see, and stay subscribed. I'll see you in the next video.